let's talk about the Makhia Bryant shooting and why I think it was completely justified. That doesn't mean it's not sad and it's not a tragedy, because it certainly is. She was a 15-year-old girl who lost her life. However, I think that the cop acted rationally, reasonably, and appropriately in this situation. So we're going to start by showing the clip. I know you've seen it before, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page to begin with, and I'll stop it before the shooting actually occurs. We see even as the cop is arriving, this is really hectic. There's a lot going on. Someone is thrown to the ground and kicked by a man, and then immediately we see that Makhia Bryant has another young girl pinned to a car. So there's a lot going on in this video. And it's a very short video because the cop had just arrived at the scene, he got out of the car, and this is what he witnessed. So immediately, he didn't entirely know what was going on because you can't tell what's going on in that clip. Again, it's really hectic. If we look specifically though at Makhia Bryant, putting aside the fact that we just saw what seems like a grown man kick a girl in the head on the ground, put that to the side for now. For Makhia, in this one scene, you can clearly see she has a knife and it's held out to the side. Less than a second later, that hand is now in the air in a stabbing motion looking like it's going down. So the cop really had no option here other than to stop this motion. And that's why I think he was justified in shooting Makhia Bryant. Because the girl in pink who was pinned to the car, her life was saved because of this cop. It's very likely she could have been stabbed and fatally stabbed had he not acted in this way. Now, we've learned a little bit more about what happened here. It turns out they weren't just strangers. They weren't just bullying each other. They knew each other fairly well. Makhia Bryant was a foster child, and her foster mom said that two of her former foster children had come to Columbus to celebrate her birthday, and they began to bicker about housekeeping. And clearly it escalated far more than anyone thought it would, including the foster mom, who said that she told CNN, the girls argue all the time, saying that she never thought it would escalate like that, which is very reasonable. If you're fighting over who needs to clean the dishes or make the bed, most of the time, perhaps it goes to yelling, maybe some hitting, hopefully not, but going to someone using a knife to try to stab another person, I don't think that's very common, at least not in the family I grew up in. Maybe your family is different and you bring out knives all the time. Now, I brought this up because we now know more information. They weren't strangers. They knew each other, at least to an extent. They may have been together in that foster home for a time. We don't know, but they did know each other. So it's not as if she was being bullied or bullying someone who was a complete stranger or just in the wrong place in the wrong time. They knew each other. They were in the same house at that point. Now, Makhia Bryant's family have spoken out, and they released this statement. They say that Makhia was a good student, a good person, and did not deserve what happened to her. Now, I recognize that it's the first reaction of family to support family, so they're not going to say, oh, she was a bad person or anything, and I don't think they should, but I do get a little bit frustrated when the media highlights the family talking about how wonderful they were, and then kind of downplays the actions that took place while this was happening. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that Makhia Bryant was a horrible person, but I am saying that good people don't generally take knives and try to stab other people over house cleaning. I think that's pretty safe to say on a general level. So I'm just going to put that out there. The family continued and said, "We are deeply disturbed by the disproportionate and unjustified use of force in this situation." So there were two key words there, disproportionate and unjustified. Now, I've already argued that I feel like the shooting was completely justified. The cop did end someone's life, but he saved an innocent bystander who was going to be stabbed. To me, that sounds like the epitome of a justified shooting. But let's put that to the side and look at disproportionate. Now, for sure, a gun, I guess you could argue, is disproportionate to a knife. They don't have the same, level of lethality. But if you're talking about lethal force, Makhia Bryant, once again, had a knife and was attempting to stab someone. She was in the motion of literally stabbing someone. That is lethal force, is it not? Knives are lethal weapons. And so the cop used a proportionate lethal force when he shot her. So I don't think it was disproportionate in any real way. She was using lethal force, and the cop resorted to using lethal force to stop her. That seems proportionate and justified to me. The family also said that I know there are de-escalation tactics that could have been used. You killed a teenage girl that could have been avoided. And I've seen a lot of people over the past few days try to make this same argument, that the cop just came in with his gun loaded and ready and they should have done something else. Now, Let's put aside the fact that there really wasn't any time to de-escalate this situation, because as soon as he got there, they were already throwing people on the ground, people were being shoved up on cars. There really wasn't much of an option here. He couldn't have de-escalated anything. He did try to say get down multiple times, and nothing happened. So I've also seen people say that he should have used some other method to disarm or subdue her. A number of people have also said he should have shot in the air as a warning shot, which is completely stupid. You don't do that. But they've also said he should have used a taser instead. And I understand where they're trying to come from, but tasers aren't as effective as you might think, for a number of reasons. I mean, they have a certain range for sure. They have a sweet spot where they're more effective. But if you look at how effective tasers are according to police departments in the field, you see that they range from mid-50s to high 70s in effectiveness. So let's kind of average it in the middle and say 70-ish%, which is not in the middle, it's on the high end, but let's go with that. Let's say a taser is 70% effective in the field when used by cops. Now, I don't know about you, but for me personally, if someone is literally about to stab me, I would hope the cop uses the most effective method to subdue them. And based on this, that's not going to be a taser, because 70% of the time it works, the other 30%, I would have been dead. So I'd rather they stop the person using whatever means necessary, because I don't want to die. The same would be true if it was a loved one of mine. It seems like what a lot of these people want to have happened is the cop either not do anything at all or try something ineffective like pepper spray from such a distance. And then when that didn't work, the girl would be stabbed and killed. But I suppose that would have been a better solution than what we had, a better outcome. Like, I don't understand why they're bringing up all of these things that won't work. Shooting in the air? That wouldn't work. Using a taser, it probably wouldn't have worked. I've even seen people on Facebook say that the cop should have used his baton to somehow knock the knife out of her hand. Now, I don't know where they think cops get these skills and these capabilities, or he should have shot her in the arm or in the leg. That's not how any of this works. It's nice to look at in video games and in TV shows where people can do that, but in the real world, you use what is most effective and most likely to work. In this case, it's unfortunate, but that was shooting Makhia Bryant. And in doing so, he saved the other girl's life, who was pinned up against the car, once again, about to be stabbed. Let's not forget that very important detail that she was literally about to be stabbed. That's important. We can't just toss that to the side and say it's irrelevant. That's very important here. Another thing about this case that I've seen making the rounds time and time again is the claim or the belief that Makhia Bryant is the one who called the cops. And in their mind, I guess this makes this somehow worse, saying that she called the cops because she was being bullied. They came, and instead of helping her, they shot and killed her. And I've seen that being talked about time and time again. Now, that comes from, I believe, her aunt, who made the claim that she had called the cops. But we don't know if that's true. We don't know actually who did call the cops. What we do know is that in that 911 call, you can hear someone say, "She's trying to stab us." Now, based on what we saw in the video, it seems more likely to me that it was perhaps the girl in pink who called 911 because she didn't have the knife. Why would Makhia Bryant, who had the knife, call 911 and say they're trying to stab me when she's the one who has the knife? Now, there could have been a different knife, I suppose, but at that moment in time when the cops got there, she is the only one who had a weapon and she was trying to use it. So even if she was the one who called the cops, which I don't think is very likely based on the evidence, I don't think that changes anything because the cop did what he had to do. And then you have people like, LeBron James, who is being stupid and kind of calling for harassment or violence against this cop, however you want to see it. And we have people like Joy Reid on MSNBC, who said that because of cases like these, no black person is truly going to be safe if we cannot be having a bad day, if we cannot defend ourselves when we think we're going to get jumped. I would argue that using a knife on someone, again, someone she seems to have known, they had some sort of relationship at least, that's not you just having a bad day. That's worse than that. Remember when I believe it was the Georgia shooting, the chief quoted him as saying he was having a bad day and everyone went insane, "Oh, how can you defend him?" Well, it kind of seems like Joy Reid's doing something similar here. It's not just having a bad day when you're trying to stab someone and kill them with a knife. It's a little bit worse than that. Now, the reason I'm talking about this video is obviously there's a lot of misinformation going around. A lot of people have their own opinions and beliefs. But I think my opinion can be summed up fairly clearly here at the end. If you do not think that this was a justified shooting, If for some reason you think that the cops were unjustified in shooting a girl who was literally about to stab another girl, then we might as well not have police at all. And I know some leftists really want that. They want to abolish the police. But I'm serious here. If this was not a justified shooting, then there really aren't any justified shootings. If a cop cannot end a life to save an innocent person's life, then we might as well just not have cops. They shouldn't do anything because they can't do anything. If he can't even save someone's life who's about to be stabbed, what's the point of having them in the first place? So it just doesn't make sense to me. And again, there are some more extreme people who are wanting to abolish the police as a whole, and they're crazy, but it just doesn't make any sense. Why can't we look at instances like this and come together and agree? Not every instance of a black person being shot by a cop has to result in rioting and looting and confrontation like this. We should all be able to agree on this case that he saved someone's life, and that's important. But we can't. We're so polarized that we can't even come together and say that this looks pretty clear, that the cop did a good job and he saved someone's life. We can't even say that. I've just been getting so frustrated by people on social media trying to pretend that this was anything other than justified and saying that, oh, we should have done X or Y or Z. And then they say things like they should have shot in the air with his gun as a warning shot. They obviously have no idea what they're talking about. They should just keep quiet because they're being idiots here. We should all be able to agree that this case is not the same circumstances as even George Floyd or Daunte Wright. It's completely different. But the media and a lot of people in the media seem to try and be treating everything in the same way. As long as it was a white cop who shot a black person, that's all we need to know, and riots ensue. Before we have any of the real facts, that's all you need to know. Then you can go down to your local Target and, break in and steal whatever you want because that's all you need. This doesn't seem very sustainable to me. Hopefully we have some sort of shift where we can actually look at what actually happened before we riot and loot. No rioting and looting would be preferable, but at the very least, if you're going to riot and loot, know what you're rioting against. Have the facts before you do it, so at least you're an informed rioter and looter. You're still a piece of crap, but you're an informed piece of crap, so at least there's that. Anyway, this sucks. It's a bad situation. It's terrible, but it was justified. I don't see how you could argue otherwise.